Please welcome President Gallogly to the stage.
Well, good afternoon. I had a dream come true this last Saturday. Coach Riley invited me to go to practice and see how our team was shaping up for its first game on September 1. And I watched them practice. By the way, they're looking pretty good. There are a few Sooner fans here, right? But the exciting part was at the end of practice, he invited me into the team huddle. What he didn't tell me was he was going to let me make the final speech to give these young men some energy before they went out and had a good time on Saturday night. So I was thinking to myself, what do you tell a group of champions like that when you're an ex-CEO? What kind of a pep talk do you give them? Well, I thought for a second and I said, I think I'll give them the same one that I gave Lincoln Riley the first time I met him. You see, the very first day I was on campus when I was going to be elected by the Board of Regents to be the next president of the University of Oklahoma, the very first two people I saw in the garage were Coach Stoops and Coach Riley. And so the three of us walked into the building together. Well, they had done a little bit of research because there was a rumor that I was going to be elected. And so Coach Riley, trying to make small talk, said, I see that you come from a very big family, Jim. I said, yes, 10 children. He said, what number were you? I said, I was number 2, Coach Riley, but I've only been number 2 once in my life. Bob Stoops looks over at him and smiles and says, nothing's changed, Coach. We all know about the expectation for the Sooners when they come on the football field. In the last 3 years, we've been in the Final Four 2 different times. And of course, in the other athletics, we've been national champions so many times. And it's something that people expect out of the University of Oklahoma. And the way we recruit, the way that we coach, the way that we play, people expect us to be champions in football year after year after year. And we don't define championships by simply winning the Big 12 or going to a bowl game, but do you get on that final stage and have a chance to win the national championship? And the people of Oklahoma expect us to not only be there, but to win. That's how all of us think when it comes to sports. I'm a Sooner, and so the very first time that I stood in front of 17,000 employees, sometimes via teleconference, and spoke to this new company that I went to work for as CEO in 2009, a company that was in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, that had in excess of $20 billion in debt. They asked me to say a few words to the employees. And I said, very simply, I did not come here to help you get out of bankruptcy. We will do that within a year. I came to help you become the #1 petrochemical company in the world. And we will do that before you can blink. That seemed like a very crazy thing to say when this was a company that 9 out of the 10 years of the last decade was dead last in financial performance and now in the throes of bankruptcy. How could they possibly consider themselves a team that could go from worst to first? Well, that's exactly what they did. A year later, we came out of bankruptcy at $17 a share on the New York Stock Exchange. 4 years later, BBB plus, strong investment grade, share price $115 a share. Every financial metric in the industry, we were basically #1, and we were almost passing Dow Chemical in market cap. 4 short years later, the #1 turnaround story on Wall Street, written by a group of 17,000 people who were given an incredible challenge to be #1, to prove to the world that they were better than people thought they were, to act like Sooners on the football field, to be champions. It's all about expectations, isn't it? At the end of the day, what are your expectations for your universities across this state in terms of performance in different ways? What should you expect? When I had my first conversation with Clay Bennett about taking this job, he made the comment to me that, Jim, I'm heavily involved with so many things in Oklahoma, but there's one thing I know to be true, that what starts to happen here at the University of Oklahoma today will change what happens in our state 10 years from now. Nothing will be more important than what happens on our campuses 10 years from now than what we decide to do on our campuses today. I happen to agree with him. And that's why someone like me, who spent his entire career at companies like ConocoPhillips, former Fortune 5 company, LyondellBasell, a Fortune 100 company, would come and become a university president for really one purpose: to set a very high set of expectations and hopefully to change the economy of a state like ours here. Janet and I are so happy to come back and raise that bar in so many different ways. Some of you have heard me talk about financials. After the last Regents meeting, there was a lot of that in the press, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But this is not a speech about financials. That's something we're going to take care of. This is a discussion about where we need to go in the state to make a change in higher education at the university level. The University of Oklahoma has a fabulous undergraduate program. You've heard the statistics about National Merit Scholars. You know we have honors colleges. You know we have residential colleges. And on and on and on. We have a rich, robust, wonderful undergraduate program. And we have spent a lot of effort building that. One of the things that perhaps you don't know is that universities' reputations are not built on the quality of their undergraduate programs nearly as much as the quality of their graduate programs, the research programs that frankly drive the economy of states. The undergraduate program helps to educate, but businesses and jobs and the economies are driven by the graduate programs in universities, and it's been proven time after time after time. That's not a new concept, but in the state of Oklahoma, we have not embraced that concept. The University of Oklahoma is going to change that. Our goal is to double our research in 5 years. That's never been done before by anybody. Our expectations are great because we are Sooners, and that's what we do. Double the amount of research in 5 years. Second thing, we have an incredibly beautiful campus with many new buildings. Some of you have been on that campus, read about it, seen the pictures. It's an incredible place, and I thank the Borns for the wonderful job that they've done in building that place where we can do wonderful things. We don't have to build a place to make this happen. It exists. Now what we have to do, instead of putting capital in bricks and mortar, we now have to invest in human capital. We have not been paying our faculty well. Just like what's happening in the state of Oklahoma in K through 12 and teacher pay, we have that same dynamic going on at the university level. Our faculty are generally paid about 10% lower than they should be. Some of our colleges are paid 20+% lower than they should be, and that has to stop. We need to invest capital in those people who have been so dedicated and so loyal and have done so much already. We need to put money back into our faculty. We also need to go out and make cluster hires and bring in great scientists. We will not be able to accomplish doubling that research effort and driving the economy of the state of Oklahoma if we don't invest in that research. And that means new dollars, new programs to build out that research effort to drive our economy. That's significant dollars, but it's an investment that this state must make. It's an investment we must start to make. So, undergraduate, focus on graduate now as an addition. Bricks and mortar capital, now to investment in human capital. You heard me say, if you read the paper, that our financials aren't great. So this seems quite a challenging thing, right? How are you going to double research? How are you going to pay faculty and all of that? And by the way, We also didn't increase tuition. We didn't increase tuition. The students applauded a lot louder when I told them that. And I think their parents did as well, because we have to keep higher education affordable for the common person in the state of Oklahoma. And if we increase it 5% every year, we're not doing that. So we're going to take care of them. We're going to make sure it's affordable, because that will drive our future. So we're holding tuition flat, going to give faculty raises, and then I talk about losing money 2 years ago, $30 million, year before that, $20 million, and all of this growth. How does that get accomplished? Very, very simply. In the last month and a half, we've been working very hard at the University of Oklahoma and finding those inefficiencies, and frankly, they're everywhere. We still do paper timesheets. We're about to come into the modern era where that's electronic. I have no idea why, but those kind of things are going to change very rapidly. We have silos in every college. Everybody does their own thing, and we don't have a common priority in terms of our faculty lines and what we're hiring and what the strategy is and how all of the things are done across that university, and those things are being fixed very, very rapidly. We're engaging with our faculty who want to see these changes too, because they would like to have raises, they would like to do research again. They want to help all of us drive that economy in the state of Oklahoma. So we're getting all of their cooperation to help get this done now. And I'm happy to say that the budget that we didn't approve in front of the regents, because we said this is not a satisfactory budget, is being revised as we speak, and we've already been able to find a very significant number of cost savings that are in the millions of dollars that we'll report at the next Regents meeting. It's stunning what we've been able to achieve in a short month and a half, and so it gives me no worry about whether we'll be able to fix that quickly. Now, that's part of the effort. The other part is this worth investing in as a state? I've said to the legislature, I am not going to come in and just continually complain to you about lack of funding for state higher education. I'd like to come in and talk to you about solutions, and I'd like to come and talk to you about investments. And investments in research that have sometimes multiples of 2, 3, 4 times the amount that's invested in returns every year is something worth talking about at the legislature, I think. I think that's something that people should listen to and consider, and hopefully use a university like OU as part of the growth and diversification of an economy here in the state of Oklahoma. We're going to be asking for some funding for those kinds of things. But we're going to walk in saying, and by the way, we have become efficient and we're not spending money on things that people will consider trivial. We have our priorities straight. The tuition for our students, the pay for our faculty, and research, and growing the reputation and the economy of the state. There's some other things that I think we need to address. Let me just give you a couple facts and figures because they're somewhat troubling to me. It's something literally I got some data on from some of our faculty this morning because I thought it was true, but I didn't know the details. We're number one in Oklahoma among all public universities in the number of higher education institutions per million residents. Is that what we want to be number one on? We have a very dispersed effort in higher education. More institutions of higher education per million students than anybody else. We're number two in the number of higher ed institutions per 10,000 full-time equivalent students. We're dispersed in our effort to get this done. The average graduation rates for our students, we're 5 from the bottom. We're not graduating students. So this dispersed effort across all of these universities across the state of Oklahoma is not getting us results. And we can blame that on the amount that the legislature has given us as investments, but that's certainly not the whole story, because a large number of those other states are doing a better job of this than we are. We can and will do better. Right, Glenn? We're working on it tomorrow in a meeting. We're sitting down, we're going to look at this hard and figure out what do we need to do to get this corrected as soon as possible to help get higher education fixed in the state of Oklahoma.